Hello everybody and welcome to the third and final day of European Conference on Mental Health. At this point we already would like to thank you for your active participation in chats and sessions and in speed dates and all the other program. It is time for our next keynote speaker, but before that we would like to remind you that 2 o'clock today, after the keynote, we will have possibility for speed dates again. Remember that speed dates are available at networking area, and please join us. And also we would like to remind our social media posting contest. You have been doing wonderful postings in Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. Keep going. You know, the prize for the contest is a free ticket to Lisbon conference, so the prizes are excellent. I give a word to my colleague Lisa here, and she will introduce our next keynote speaker.
I do that gladly. So next keynote speaker is Jari Hakanen from Finland, and the title of the speech, Bored, Burned Out or Still Engaged, Employee Wellbeing During and After the Pandemic. Stage is yours, Jari.
Thank you very much. Just a second. Okay. I hope you can hear and see my presentation. Is it okay? So, bom dia, hyvää päivää, good day, dear colleagues all over Europe and world. Thanks for the invitation to join this conference. I will actually give this talk from my hotel room in Madrid because I had the first work trip for 2 years just this week, and we had a small meeting here in Madrid, and now I hope that everything goes well with the presentation. So this is modern work life. You never know where you will carry out your job tasks. I have been working at the Finnish Institute of Occupational Health for something like 20 years, and I started as a burnout researcher, but then gradually moved included also the positive side, so that we don't only suffer at work, we also enjoy working, and we also enjoy that when we can help our colleagues, when they help us, and we find a lot of meaningfulness at work. And I think we should understand both sides, the negative side and the positive side, and this I will also illustrate in my talk, focusing on employee well-being. And this is the simple outline. First, I will tell something indeed about our ongoing follow-up research, which we started before the outbreak of COVID and have followed Finnish citizens, Finnish working people after that. Then I put more emphasis on work engagement, which after 20 years of research all over the world, and also what I have been doing, I dare to call it as best possible state of well-being at work. And then towards more practical sides, then I will talk about the servant leadership, which is a kind of sort of leadership philosophy and set of practices to boost healthy workers, engaged workers, and then also the positive role that we all can do at our work, namely being proactive, called job crafting. I will tell about the possibilities to make one's job to fit better with one's needs, preferences, and strengths. And these both kind of actions, proactive actions, are indeed good in terms of research evidence for well-being and mental health of employees in any kind of jobs. And by the way, this picture, it's not a seal, it's me in the water. This is one of the, I would say, one of the best ways, at least in Finland, to take care of your well-being and positive mental well-being. When you swim in a 0-degree water, after that you just feel great. Welcome to Finland, and try it someday. Okay, Briefly speaking, in terms of infected, hospitalized, and deaths, Finland has managed quite well with the pandemic, but we have had our share of all restrictions, and also the number of people who moved to telecommute was highest in Finland in Europe, and it was like half of the 1 million employees who telecommuted in spring after the outbreak of pandemic, and has continued to do until these days when we will release the restrictions starting this month. And we had kind of researchers' luck as we started a new project with 2 different data collections just few months before the outbreak of the pandemic. First was among Finnish general working population, and then we also started a longitudinal study in 7 Finnish organizations representing different industries. And in today's speech, I first will focus more on this general population study, because these people we have followed already for 3 times every 6 months, and will continue to do also in the future. And we also added a new cohort sample this summer, because the sample sizes get smaller and smaller with every follow-up. And I will briefly illustrate what seemed to happen to employee well-being during these challenging months. This is a nice taxonomy by Russell. He says that all human emotions can be mapped according to 2 basic dimensions. One is how we feel, so negative, positive feelings, and the other one is about being activated, high arousal state, or then low arousal state. When we sleep, we are at low arousal state. And according to these 2 dimensions, I have also mapped well-known employee well-being concepts here. And today I will focus mainly on work engagement, but then in the beginning also on job boredom and burnout, which are like the 3, I would say, the key concepts of employee well-being states at work to focus on, also in practice, but also often in research we focus on those. So according to recent definition, burnout is a prolonged stress syndrome characterized with exhaustion, mental distance, that is the negative attitude, cynicism at work, and then cognitive and emotional impairment. So when you are burned out, you feel not only exhausted, but you may also feel cynical about your work, loss of work joy, but also that you have difficulties in focusing and remembering different things and concentrating. And then burnout employee could also have kind of emotional outbursts that surprises her or himself also, that starts to cry in the middle of the meeting or so. So burnout is a syndrome, job-related syndrome. Then another negative state, job boredom, which is much more poorly understood and less studied. It's also an amotivational state, lack of meaningfulness at work due to understimulation and lack of proper challenges at work. During the pandemic, one could also say that job boredom may be caused by overstimulation, namely in the form of endless amount of team and Zoom meetings. You don't necessarily burn out because of them, but you may kind of lose your motivation and feel kind of a remote work apathy, so which I have called it also this state of boredom. And then there is the positive side, work engagement. This does not refer to child labor, but it's a truly positive, affective, motivational state at work, characterized by feeling vigorous, energetic at work, dedicated, having positive attitudes towards work, feeling proud of what you are doing, finding it meaningful, and then absorption, kind of a flow state that when you focus on certain tasks, you enjoy and forget about the time passing by. And I'm not sure whether this is the best picture to illustrate work engagement, but you know, these young people here, this feeling comes out of putting heavy effort on work and trying hard and working together. And then when you finally succeed, then can be really fantastic feeling. So So this is like an end result of being engaged at work. So how did the outbreak of the pandemic impact employee well-being according to our research? Here we have 4 indicators: work engagement, burnout, job boredom, and then workability. The one question, typical question asking, how would you rate your workability from scale 1 to 10 compared to your lifetime best? And here are the 4 time phases showing the development of or changes in the same people of these states of well-being. And you can see from the left, work engagement, that during the first few months of the pandemic, work engagement went up, but then it has decreased again, and now it's more or less on the same level as it was before the pandemic. Okay, and the black indicators here tell that there is a significant difference compared to previous study phase, and the red indicator tells that there's a difference with the last measurement compared to the period before the pandemic. So it's a difference compared to what was the situation 18 months ago. And we see that with burnout, not much has happened. First, also exhaustion went down, like work engagement went up. So it was first few months was kind of a holiday impact, but then it has vanished, this holiday impact, and not much have happened in burnout. But then job boredom has slightly increased compared to what it was before the pandemic. And then there is a decrease in workability in the general population, Finnish working population. But overall, the changes have been quite minor. Then when we look more closely certain groups of employees, here we compare young adults with elderly adults, and here young adult refers to those under 36 years of age. And here we use the 2 cohort data, but same we can find with the 4-time follow-up data. So this tells that particularly young adults have suffered from the pandemic. We see that work engagement is actually even at a higher level among older employees and seems to have decreased slightly among young people, but then burnout has particularly is at higher level now than it used to be among young employees, and same with job boredom. And you can see that young employees already before the pandemic reported much higher levels of boredom at work. And this is interesting. We often talk about burnout when we talk about young employees, but this is what I constantly find in my research, that young employees experience more job boredom than older ones. And this is interesting because we talk so much about, or younger generations, millennials talk so much about fear of missing out and strong need for meaningfulness and so on. So how is the daily experience of work for young employees is one question, but the other is that it seems to have even raised considerably over the time during this pandemic, this job boredom among young employees particularly. And then with worrisome result that workability is now at the same level, the self-rated workability among young employees as it with elderly employees. And this is, of course, is not good, as we ask what is the workability compared to your lifetime best, and it's naturally usually decreases when you get older, and this is something to pay attention to. We also studied depressive symptoms and life satisfaction, and we also see some increase in depressive symptoms among young employees particularly. What it may be behind then with the differences among young versus elderly employees, from positive side, it's good that more young employees report receiving supervisory support and showing trust in supervisor. This is very nice finding. But then with all other resources, young employees report less of them, less job autonomy, less seeing the positive results of one's efforts, one's work, higher job insecurity, not so good in balancing work and non-work. here we can see probably that also leisure time has been particularly difficult for young people who cannot have met their friends as they used to be or should be. Then less optimism, more feeling lonely, and many of these resources are a bit difficult to impact at work site. I would say that perhaps the best strategy would be to increase even more this supervisory and colleague support at work site, which also then means that employees may feel, young people may feel having more autonomous at work, and when they get feedback, they better see that they are accomplishing real things at work, and perhaps also open communication reduces the negative effects of insecurities at work. Then we also compared those who have telework all the time with those who have been working in their standard workplaces, meeting people. And here the picture is also a bit confusing. I hope you can follow this. But with lighter color, you can see non-teleworkers, full-time non-teleworkers, and with darker color, you can see teleworkers. And we can see with work engagement that it's actually those who have been non-teleworking, that the level of work engagement is now lower than it was before the pandemic. With burnout, again, we don't see much changes, but one burnout component, this cynical and negative attitudes towards work, that has increased slightly in both groups. Then job boredom, particularly, has become familiar for full-time teleworkers, which can easily be understood, and workability then again decrease among those who have non-teleworked during the pandemic. So it seems that in terms of where you work, nobody has benefit from this period. More it is that there are some losses in well-being in both groups, but luckily they are not, don't seem to be severe on average level. And one particular risk group then has been those teleworkers who live in single households compared to those who have families. We a lot talk about children and how they have disturbed work days and all this, but our research shows that children has been partly burden, but also partly blessing at work and giving meaningfulness also during the difficult times. But here we see that those who are living alone report less engagement, less workability, but more boredom and more burnout. And this is also challenging for companies and leaders how to support, but to stay in touch with workers is particularly important, has been particularly important during this time that when people have teleworked. Okay, and why we then see so little changes, actually little changes, overall changes in employee well-being. This is one model where we statistically modeled, longitudinal model, that increase in telework, so who switched to telework after the outbreak of the pandemic. It predicted, well, less support from co-workers, less support from your supervisor, which again predicted less identification, sameness with one's workplace, attachment with one's workplace, and perceptions of fairness. And this again predicted decrease in all three indicators of employee well-being. But at the same time, increase in telework meant for many more autonomy and more learning of new work habits. And that, vice versa, predicted increases in employee well-being. And this is kind of balancing thing. And this also we find among those who have not teleworked but worked in the standard workplaces, that there have been both positive and negative developments in working conditions. So briefly summing up this first part, so although some fluctuation, but those who have stayed employed have stayed quite well overall, at least. Our data don't allow like sector comparisons. We cannot say about health or social sector or education or other sectors. But there are some groups that are at risk, and luckily and hopefully we can go more back to normal. We also have compared hybrid workers with full-time teleworkers and non-teleworkers, and it seems that those who can combine those two types of working place seem to experience somewhat better well-being. And in telework, job boredom may not only result from the less face-to-face contacts, but also most tasks are carried out only virtually, like this one. We all know that this is nice that we can now meet virtually, but if we could meet face-to-face, the situation would be quite different and much more enriching in many ways. And we often forget non-teleworkers. Also for them, work has not been the same. Richness of social interactions have suffered in many ways from safe distances and masks and clients that you don't meet anymore and so on. So there are also this side, although we often only talk about telework. So I would say that human face-to-face connections are important also based on our research. Okay, we have taken several practical steps with this research at my institute, a lot of different webinars, lectures, trainings. We also developed a How Do You Feel online employee well-being test available for all, and it has been very popular ever since. And this is also interesting. You may find a brief English summary if you are interested, that our Ministry of Social Affairs and Health asked us to carry out a project to produce 9 mental health tools to promote mental health, and one of them is this our How Do You Feel online test. But then towards what we can do at worksite, and I will present 2 concepts: servant leadership and job crafting, and more focus now on work engagement, which I already defined, but it's this positive, affective, motivational state at work. And what we know now after 20 years of research of work engagement, we see that it positively relates to better job performance, also at team level. Engagement is not only an individual experience, it's also a team experience. It relates to better productivity in with many different indicators, but also engaged employees show more this what I have called extra role behaviors. So they show more friendliness, more creativity, more learning motivation, things like that, and have more positive work attitudes. And the nice thing about work engagement is that it is contagious. It transmits from one person to another, also between partners living together. Different feelings, positive or negative, are more contagious among those who are close to each other. And this is because of then we show more empathy, and that helps to bridge emotions between 2 parties. And also, and these all are of course good for organizations, for managers. They are dumb if they don't pay attention to this side of feeling positive, feeling engaged at work, because it seems to be highly important what organizations want to achieve. But it's also very good for employees themselves. So research shows that engagement predicts better mental health, better physical health. Also, although often this debated, but it also, according to all our Finnish longitudinal studies, it also supports better work-family balance, less conflicts, and more enriching experiences between these 2 areas of life. And then, according to our research, combining registered data among Finnish employees, also engagement predicted less likelihood of unemployment and also less likelihood of disability pensions, which I found very, very interesting and very important. Often we have recognized that there are many negative things that predict more disability pensions because of mental health problems, but it seems also that if we manage to boost this positive state of engagement at work, we can also reduce many mental health problems at work. And actually, we can not only prevent something problematic, but also boost something positive like life satisfaction and happiness coming out of work. Here are two examples of nice ways of thinking of one's work. Sorry, these are both men, but they represent different ways of understanding their role at work. On the right side, there is Henrik Detman, who is the coach of the Finnish national basketball team. I usually don't so much like these allegories between top sports and everyday working life. But his book I like. He himself describes himself that in the beginning he was a true asshole as a leader and as a coach. But then he understood that, and he thought that, I imagined I was a great leader. Now I realized that I'm the servant of my players. And this did not make me a weaker leader, but a stronger one. And the only way to build trust is to be an authentic person. And if you don't follow basketball, I don't do that so much, but Finnish basketball team has succeeded amazingly well during recent years. And then here's a checkout Yama cashier from a supermarket in Tampere, one of the biggest cities in Helsinki. And a few years ago, he described his way of working as a checkout. Many of us probably would feel that there's no much way of making your work inspiring, but Yama shows the opposite. He says that I wasn't hired to mark yogurt pots. I was hired to create positive feelings in people, or so I see it in anyway. What's the point in trying to make my boss happy if I can make the clients happy and through this enjoy my work? And this is a nice way of understanding your job, despite of many different things, and you have very controlled work and limited amount of tasks that you can do there, but still you can create your own job in a way and add certain elements that makes it much more engaging and meaningful to yourself. So first, a little bit about self-servant leadership. It was developed already for the idea 50 years ago in United States, and it's a leadership style that has most focus on human well-being. So it's the strongest point is that we can succeed, the companies can succeed only via well-feeling employees. And it's about going beyond one's self-interests and career interests. It's more about being working for the good of the whole. And there are certain elements like these leadership elements, empowering people, giving appreciation, focusing on people's abilities and potentials and motivations, trying to make them come true. It's the traditional boss thing, this accountability, so that holding people knowledgeable about their responsibilities and what is expected of them, showing direction, vision, communicating long-term vision and shared purpose, really important during the pandemic period particularly, because many feel that they are kind of lost with their work and what is the meaning, what is the purpose. Then also showing courage. It's about taking risks when necessary and trying out new approaches, being proactive. But then it's a set of basic social skills, being authentic, like Henrik Detman in the previous slide said, so that you don't hide behind your status or role, but you are like true to yourself and true to others. I don't believe that good leadership is based on certain kind of personality characteristics. There are a lot of research about what kind of a leader makes a good leader. I think many different kind of people can be great leaders, but the important thing is being authentic, that your followers, your employees can understand what are you aiming at and what are you like as a person. Good leadership is also about showing humility, daring to admit that I can make mistakes and others can be much better than I am in certain tasks, and I'm willing to learn and admit and giving credits to others and not only to myself. And then it's about showing empathy and compassion, kind of acceptance, forgiveness. So briefly said, these are elements of being a servant leader. And during the COVID era, and as you can see, these are not only restricted to COVID period or tele or non-telework, but I think they apply to all kind of situations. These are kind of 5 different deepening steps that I have thought. You may disagree or agree, but I think first comes taking care of certain basic issues. It's important that leaders take care or supervisors take care of their own well-being. They clarify the goals, and important is not to damage employees' willingness to do a good job. So if your employees take some risks and show initiative, so if it even goes a bit strong, it's important to give encouraging feedback so that they don't stop trying. Next step would be to treat people as human beings. Important questions are, how are you? What do you need to manage? Can I help you some way? These kind of basic questions where leader and the follower are at the same side, at the same level. Then boosting the positive, giving trust. Trust is not something that is gained. It's better to start with giving trust to people, show appreciation, giving positive feedback. All this creating a horizon of hope after the pandemic is definitely now good leadership practices. And what is very important also is paying attention to professional growth, particularly now young employees who have started their jobs during the pandemic or right before the pandemic. Many of them may feel that they are kind of forgotten. They want to know all the tacit knowledge. They want to learn everything possible from their senior colleagues, and this has suffered because of the pandemic. And now it's very important to give them and share all the knowledge, skills, networks, and build prospects for future career paths. And then the fantastic idea of this Robert Greenleaf's idea of servant leadership is that it should not restrict only to leaders, but in the end, it should be like a company culture, so that we all are servants to each other, like in the novel of Alexander Dumas. So all for one and one for all. So this kind of way of understanding organizational everyday life produces good results like trust, appreciation, belongingness, which then, according to theory and according to research, results in improved well-being, and that again to better job performance, so that everybody wins. And then still job crafting. Job crafting is about being proactive at work, voluntarily make self-initiated changes in one's job to make the job better fit with one's needs and preferences and values. So it's about thinking, how can I make my job a bit smarter for myself, but still attain the goals of the company. So I don't change the goals necessarily, but I more like do it in a better way that suits better what I am and what are my strengths at work. And it can be cognitive kind of crafting. So not only leaders can highlight the purpose, but I myself, every now and then, it's good to think of what is the purpose of my job? Why did I choose this career? What is the meaning? This is often forgotten in a very busy, uncertain everyday work. And then it's good to remind you of why is my work important. Then it can be about task crafting. So it can be changing the way I do certain tasks. It can be like adding certain tasks or roles at work. Becoming a mentor could be a very nice thing. I know many, including myself, that enjoyed a lot of voluntarily taking the role of a mentor in my company, and then you can share your ideas and experiences with younger employees, and that is one way of crafting your job. Then about skill crafting, so voluntary seeking possibilities to learn more. Perhaps I meet certain foreign people at my job, and it is not necessary or obligatory, but perhaps it would be nice that I can learn the basics of the language that I meet at my work. Perhaps I can take an evening course so that I can communicate better and that way make my job even nicer for myself and also for the client. And I would say that all you who are attending this Congress are also skill crafters here, and you also want to learn and new things and get inspired, gaining inspiration for your future work after this conference. And then important aspect or possibility of job crafting is relationship crafting. So that is how I am with other people. What do I give to other people? Do I ask feedback? If I need feedback, okay, I can wait until the end of the word that my boss gives, but he never perhaps gives it. But why not ask myself? Or I can ask for help before I get too stressed trying out myself. And if I need to get inspired by new people, perhaps I can approach colleagues that I don't often meet. So this is about how to interact with other people. I would say that the possibilities are endless here. And during the pandemic, here are something that I that I have done myself and that I have advised people to do. So important thing is to stay in active touch with colleagues, even though it would not be possible face-to-face all the time. Also important is to stay connected with the supervisor and vice versa, so that nobody would feel isolated and forgotten. And then what I did with my younger colleagues, so we used to have these virtual coffee breaks, and then it became a bit boring, and we changed that now we every week, every Friday afternoon, typically we read something, a paper or watch a webinar or something like that, so we can share news but also discuss and learn more. And that has been very nice, very nice ways to stay in touch and also learn new things together. But learning new skills by yourself also can be good, brightening up the purpose, meaning. And then what is very important during the pandemic, and always we are so good at feeling insufficient and noticing what we did not achieve during the workday. It's very valuable to focus on what we did during the workday and pay attention to that, and also to share them with others. So if we work at home, nobody sees perhaps what we achieve, so you need to verbalize it, you need to share with others, and that's a nice possibility. And then what has been very valuable is to show mercy, show compassion to oneself and to others. We are very ambitious at our work jobs, and we perhaps have not been able to accomplish so much as we would have liked. So it's very good to be understandable to yourself and to your colleagues and to your people if you are a leader. And of course, building a good, sustainable everyday life, balancing work and free time has been and will be highly important also for the future, so that we have a good day experience also outside the office hours. In the end, I will tell that I'm very happy of this. We built a job crafting e-learning
Jari,
tool.
you have
Sorry?
5 minutes. 5
Sorry?
minutes, Jari.
Yeah, I will use only 1 minute. Yeah. Thanks. So including small video clips, game elements, individual group assignments to be practiced. And it's fantastic that this, which is applicable via internet, but also via mobile phone, actually has increased job crafting, increased work engagement, and we did not find effects on heart rate variability, but in the control group after the intervention, it went down. So perhaps there are some indirect effects also on physical health, but there are many ways of building good job crafting, and it can be not only individual, but collaborative, and we can start it right away next day at the work to think of our joint work and how to make it even more meaningful. So, obrigado, kiitos. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jari, for wonderful speech. And We have some comments, and people are thanking
Thank you.
for for raising the awareness of these skills or elements of good working life. And Susanna from Finland here says that she likes the idea of job crafting, and we all as employees have our own responsibility too to effect on our own job engagement and well-being in our work.
Yeah.
Excellent presentation. While people are maybe still thinking questions, I would like to ask you, the basic principles are, as you showed, they are quite simple. They are not
Yes.
very complicated in human contexts. So be kind to your colleagues and friends, and do nice things and talk nicely. Why do you think it's sometimes difficult to follow these basic elements of being human?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I indeed think, and our research shows that indeed this everyday interaction at workplaces, these are simple things. They don't need, and I have met so many different sectors, different jobs. I don't believe this is like a sector issue. It's more that every workplace kind of produces their own flourishing or their own, own suffering, and it's something that, well, it's easily forgotten. Usually people are not bad, but when we are very, very busy, we may be a bit egoistic also. Because we lack time, we focus on our own interests, and we have like a short-term vision. But what is nice thing, and we have had these interventions in different kind of workplaces, like that it is possible to change this culture towards more positive. But the challenge is how to make it happen so it's not only one person there, that it's like, okay, Lauri is at our workplace. He's also always shining and kind, and others. You can be contagious. Hopefully others will like you are a role model. But it would be nice that we kind of together at the same time build this way of interacting. And we have nice, at least in Finland, we have this engineers have this reputation of not only focusing on things and issues and not on emotions. And we have so nice experiences how they start to say hello, good morning, starting from very simple things, and then giving truly positive feedback. And then we have this kind of a very everyday small positive interaction. It has led them to be also innovative, more innovative, because when they have more positive and open communication, that also makes it easier to share like poorly developed ideas and then to develop them together. But I think time is one of our enemy at everyday work, that we would need that. Also, I'm that side that I don't like the idea that companies would turn totally to be teleworking. That I think it's very important that we have also after the pandemic these possibilities to meet face to face, and also this way cross borders between teams, between departments, so that different people can meet each other. But yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure I answered.
And maybe we have a new chance, kind of new chance now after the
Yes.
pandemic. And yeah,
Yeah. I think so too. I think so. There's a great possibility.
yeah. Can I ask you a personal question? How did you manage about during this pandemic times with your work? How did you feel?
Yeah, it was funny. I have this in Finland. We have these negotiations every day with our bosses. I had one month after the out, or 1.5 months after the outbreak of the pandemic, and I said that, wow, I have so much time now. I should have had 6 work trips abroad, and all the lectures are cancelled. And I said that now I can write, I can focus on the basic job. But after that, naturally, it has been totally different because of this pandemic, that work companies have needed a lot of support and a lot of needs all over, and media and all this. So it has been, truly speaking, it has been challenging. but it also, because there's always this two sides. There are things that take our energies, and then there are things that give energy to us. So it's this also this sense of meaningfulness, good colleagues. I take care. I have been mostly teleworking. I take care of the breaks. I go indeed to this ice swimming thing and all these kind of things. So it has been challenging, and I hope it becomes less demanding now afterwards, so that I can focus on the projects that we started before the pandemic.
We take one fast question still before we end. There is Risto Mannela asking that, do you have any self-help tips for someone who recognizes, for example, job boredom in themselves?
Yeah, I think, one could, as a Finnish speaker, they're asking, you could do the test also and see whether you are bored or not. And but then I think job crafting is a perfect way that this is indeed the medicine for feeling bored at work, that you think about your job, what it consists of, what kind of tasks gives more meaning to me, can I add these kind of tasks, what kind of people gives me energy, could I add communication, collaboration with those people, trying to find new. And of course, if you really feel bored out, that you cannot find anything that is fits with your needs, and you see it seems to be not possible to solve, then of course there should be the possibility also to think of changing the job sometimes.
Sometimes it can be good to have a plan B, even if you don't have to go.
Yeah. Or rather that I miss in our work life, that when you have a long job tenure in one job or one workplace, that you could go for a certain period, like few months, half a year, to another company, and then you would see your old job and your old workplace perhaps totally in new eyes, and find much more positive sides when you have visited another company. Or necessarily it could be, of course, the other way around, but sometimes the change does not need to be permanent. It could be also fixed term.
Exactly. Thank you, Jari. There is a lot of thanks for you in the chat.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Great
All the
to
best
have you here.
to everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jari, once again, and have a safe journey in Spain. At this point, I still want to remind that at 2 o'clock in 15 minutes, speed dates are available. Join us, have also some lunch, because it's also lunch break now. And then we continue with oral presentations, and our closing ceremony starts at 4 o'clock Finnish time. But keep posting in social media. Go check the posters in poster area and relax now with lunch and speed dating.
Yeah, and I also remind that we have already sent some links for presentations, so there is some keynote presentations already linked, and soon the panel discussion also, and also the opening ceremony with the music and the scenery from Helsinki. Now a lunch break, and see you in speed dates.